Before we jump into today's video, quick exciting news for all of our subscribers. 𝘍𝘪𝘭𝘮𝘵 will soon be renamed to Filmmonger. Nothing changes other than the name of the channel. So with that, let's go ahead and jump into some quick Squid Game trivia. What served as the inspiration for the giant girl in Red Light, Green Light? Leave your guesses in the comments down below, and stick around to the end of the video to find out what the answer is. Let's go ahead and jump into today's video. Hey guys, and welcome to 𝘍𝘪𝘭𝘮𝘵, your #1 source for all things films and movies. And with Squid Game finally released on Netflix, fans everywhere have been falling in love with this show. And now, Squid Game is the biggest show on Netflix in all of Netflix history, which is really crazy, but at the end of the day, the show was so well done, it can't be too much of a surprise how successful it ended up being. And one thing that's really interesting is to take a closer look behind the scenes at some moments from the games in Squid Game to see how they were able to bring those moments to life. So today we wanted to actually compare some of the scenes directly from the released version that we obviously saw on Netflix to some of the behind the scenes moments where we can see things like blue screens still up in the background and how they were able to utilize different types of effects and visual effects to make the scenes seem real. So we'll look through all 6 of the games today, starting off with, of course, Red Light, Green Light. Now, the process of Red Light, Green Light is very interesting because, of course, they had to have a camera crew on at least one side of the filming set. So sometimes they utilize blue screen walls to kind of allow freedom with visual effects to close off certain sections. But it is really interesting to see the process of bringing the scene, which had so many different actors in this sequence, to life in a sequence that really served as a hook for a lot of people. Now in the second game, which was the honeycomb game, it's really interesting when we look behind the scenes at the process of this sequence, because it does seem like one of the games that is much less physically involved when they're shooting the different scenes. But it is cool to look behind the scenes as they had to really be coached through the acting that went into the sequence. And you can see a lot of the production team working alongside the actors to make sure not only the idea of it being a very intense moment was sustained, but also the process of figuring out the best way to approach the honeycomb. And that's something that's really cool to look at behind the scenes.
오케이요.
For game 3, we saw a tug of war, and this one is so unique to look at when you're comparing the real footage to the actual footage we saw on Netflix, and it does look like it was a very exhausting process to film these moments, just because the actors are really giving it their all to sell this idea that it's a life or death game of tug of war. It's also interesting to see some of the footage of what they did to make the sequence where a losing team would fall and how they would safely pull off that type of stunt.
If you do that, the other team won't be able to pull us to their side. Just hold like this for 10 seconds. And then the opposing team will start to get frustrated because they are thinking, why won't they budge? Because they believe that they were much stronger. If you can hold out for that long, you will be able to catch a moment from your opponent's focus. The rhythm breaks.
Then we were faced with the 4th game, which was the marble game, and this one's really interesting as well because there's so much emotion going on between the actors, and there's some really heavy scenes just going on between all of the main characters, and it's really cool to get to look behind the scenes and see how the actors were able to try to bring themselves into these very strong stressful and heartbreaking dialogues between each other and how they brought these scenes in a realistic manner. And it's really interesting to see just the emotional energy they were behind the scenes versus the energy that you see when you watch it the first time. But first, we wanted to give a quick reminder, we do have a really awesome Instagram page that updates you guys on everything happening Marvel immediately. So if you guys want to follow us on Instagram, check it out, link in the description. There's also a ton of really awesome memes and other things that are posted on there. So make sure you guys are following that page, and let's go ahead and jump into this story. Then the next game after that was the Glass Bridge, and that one also was a very high intensity game that narrowed down the amount of players to just 3 final players. But of course, this one obviously had a lot of stunts involved because we see the deaths of a lot of players as well, and the way that they're able to create these sets and pull the stunts off so that it seemed realistic is something that's really cool here. And then for the final game, it's really interesting to take a closer look at the actual game, Squid Game, which was played by the 2 final players left. Of course, this one took place in the same area that the first game took place, which was this cool way of bringing the story full circle. And ultimately, it's just really cool to see the behind the scenes and how they brought that to life compared to what we saw on Netflix. Now there's also some other behind the scenes moments from in between the main games, which is interesting to look at and compare alongside the footage from the actual show. And there's also sequences that were filmed obviously before they got to the games themselves, and it's cool just to see the involvement even in the first episode in setting things up so we know about the character and what his own personal stakes are before he chooses to go into the games.
이 안에 들어와 있는 사람들, 그들에게 남은 건 거의 절망과 공포와 분노와 슬픔밖에 없어 보이는데 마치 그들이 밖에 있던 바깥 세상과 똑같이 뭔가 그래도 그 와중에 유치한 인간.
So at the end of the day, what were your thoughts on Squid Game? Were you a fan of the series, and would you like to see the new season? Some people are kind of divided on whether or not they should make a second season, so we'd love to know what your thoughts are on that. Also, for the trivia question at the beginning of the video, from an interview with the team that was developing a lot of the story and the sets, apparently the design behind the child doll thing from the first game was actually inspired by children's books from the 70s and 80s, where they kind of had this creepy-ish design to them, even though they're in this childlike setting, and they brought it to life in a pretty creepy way, which was kind of cool. If you like this video and you want to see more videos like this, make sure you are subscribed with notifications on. Now, possibly one of the coolest things about this series was the fact that all of the games that were played during Squid Games were inspired or crafted from some sort of kids game, which allowed for a very simple premise and setting for viewers to relate to, which allowed for more time for the show to focus in on the emotional drama and the suspense that was being built in these high tension scenarios. But still, the use of color or different designs in different ways really helped make a lot of the game's set pieces really stand out, and it's cool to see the process of building some of these really intricate projects. can check out our other video we recently did on Squid Game, and we'll see you all next time with a brand new video.